Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to another week of Real Family Talk. This is your host, Jay Real. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday evening. As always, I am on Tuesday evenings. It's a beautiful night in Orlando as far as I'm concerned. It's a little cool, but I like this type of weather. It's we had the sun in the day. It's about 70 degrees outside, and I think we're probably around, 50? Maybe not so about 50 right now. Maybe about 60 right now. And good times, man. I love this kind of weather when we get it in Orlando. We only get it for a couple of months, and this is one of those months. So I'm going to enjoy it while I can. How's everybody doing in the studio tonight?
Hey, everything is everything, man.
Awesome.
Everything all right.
Awesome. We got Mr. King is in the building. How you doing, Mr. King?
All right. I'm doing good. And you, Brother Reed?
I'm doing pretty good, sir. Doing pretty good. Miss Monica is in the building. She's around here somewhere.
I'm right here. I'm doing great. How are you doing, Real?
Doing all right, Miss Monica. Doing all right. As always, on the third Tuesday of the month, Mr. Jason Henry's in the building. How you doing tonight, Jason?
Man, I can't call it, man. Jeremy talking about the Cowboys and what they did on Sunday.
Yes, right, man. Jeremy's in the building. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm good. How y'all doing?
And last but not least, Miss McCrae is also in the building. How you doing, Miss McCrae?
Hey, y'all. I'm blessed.
Awesome, man. Got to get her. Is that mic turned on there, bro?
Am I not turned on?
It is now, he says. It is now. That's awesome, man. Yeah, man, we'll get to it real quick. A couple football notes. Cowboys fans, Romo in December, man. They say it never works. Never works, Romo.
Y'all catch that Magic game the other night?
Right, you don't even want to talk about it?
Not at all, man.
Romo is cursed.
You know what? I don't think, and I know, because I wrote a piece the other night talking about how technically it wasn't Romo's fault. It's hard not to blame him because he did throw the 2 late interceptions. But when you're up by 26 points, why do you continue to pass the ball?
Well, on that last play, they said the coach wanted a run play, but Romo checked off and said because he saw it was stacked.
He rolled that bus right over Romo's face in the post game. He rolled it right over him because he did. Because when I was watching it, you could see he yelled at the line. He audibled out of the running play.
Right.
But the Cowboys, they changed their structure like a month and a half ago where the offensive coordinator, Bill Callahan, was calling the plays for the majority of the season because he took that away from, from Jason Garrett.
Right.
So a lot of people complain that Garrett, he just wasn't a good play caller, so they had Bill Callahan to come in. And then about a month ago, they changed it. So Bill Callahan sits up in the booth. He calls the play. Garrett hears it, and if he doesn't think it's a good idea, he can veto that play and call something else. They called the running play, and a lot of people are saying, or a lot of the beat writers in Dallas are saying that he should have told Romo because he has access to Romo's ears in his helmet. He should have said, do not audible out of this play. I know we give you free will. Even if they stack 15 in the box and bring some extra guys from the sideline, do not audible out of that play. And he allowed Romo to audible out. Romo did what Romo usually can do in the fourth quarter and turn the ball over, and then that was the end of the game.
Gotcha.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
24-point lead, and it was a lot of Cowboys fans drinking on Sunday night.
Well, it's a lot of happy Dolphin fans out there also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. The Dolphins are in the thick of things anyway.
Yeah, they are.
They're still on the outside right now. They showed the standings last night, so they are the number 7 team at the moment. But some things go right for them, and as they close out the year, they could be back in the playoffs.
You know the funny part is that the Jaguars are still technically alive.
No, that is
straight
funny.
up, yeah. They need a lot of bad things to happen,
Yeah.
but they can still make the playoffs. But the Dolphins are 4-1 in their last 5, so they're playing well.
Yeah, man, good stuff going down in Miami. All those Miami fans, because they've been longing probably longer. Well, they're actually longer than the Cowboys have for just some good news and a good season. And Tannehill's turning out to be a pretty good kid down in
I think he's
down
gonna
in
be
Miami.
okay. I
Seems
think
like
he's gonna be okay.
all right.
You have a playmaker in Mike Wallace. The defense seems to be stout enough. So I think you get maybe one more good playmaker in there, and the Dolphins may be okay.
We'll see, man. Good times. Good times.
How about those Steelers, though?
The Steelers won.
They did.
They did
That's
win.
what I said. How about those
Yes,
Steelers?
they beat the Bengals. It means nothing in terms of the playoffs, but they did beat the number one team in their division. So shout out to the Steelers for beating the number one team in their division.
Now, let me ask you this, because I know you're a diehard Steelers fan. Mike Tomlin's name has been attached to that Texas job opening. Do you think that's something he would take?
I don't think so. I think Mike has a good thing going in Pittsburgh. I can't see them firing him, even though he's having an okay season. I don't see them getting rid of him because they're very loyal.
Yeah,
and he's doing a good job. He's already won 2 Super Bowls, so I don't see him leaving the NFL to go to college.
Has he won 2? Or has he gone to 2?
No, he's won.
Because Cowher won.
Oh no, Cowher was the first.
Yeah,
I should say. I'm sorry.
He's gone to 2 though.
Yeah. He's 1-1. Yeah, he's 1-1.
Hey, look, if you get rid of him, the Cowboys will gladly take Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, I think most teams, a lot of teams would take Tomlin, but I don't think he's going anywhere, man. He'll be there next year until this time runs out. Cowher was there 10 years. I think Cowher was there.
They've been there longer, man. You're right though. Steelers don't get rid of coaches.
So they don't really get rid of coaches. You know what I'm saying? So I think
that's why they got a continued success.
I think he's going to be okay down in Pittsburgh or up in Pittsburgh, I guess. So we'll see though. I'm looking forward to next season. Hopefully we get this offensive line straightened out. Get some young guys to start making some plays on defense.
Get Pouncey back. I think you'll be all right on the offensive line.
Because I was looking at some stats. They were showing some stats during the game the other day, and they were comparing the offense since Ben has been playing, and then comparing the defense over the same time frame. And what they've noticed is the offense, as far as the average points per game that they've earned, is pretty much the same. It's been consistent, about 20, 22 and a half, 23 points a game every season since Ben had been in place. The defense, though, with the exception of this year, was averaging 16 and a half points a game. This year, 22 and a half.
Wow.
So the offense is pretty consistent,
Almost
even as bad as it looks.
Yeah.
It's really the defense.
That's almost 10-point swing, so that's
a
pretty
lot.
major. Yeah.
If we were averaging 17 points, most of these games that we've lost, we'd have won. Actually.
Yeah. Well, and your head coach not running on the field.
That was one play.
They said he was doing the stank leg on the sideline.
He was mesmerized by the play that he didn't even realize that the guy was behind him. And then when he noticed, he was like, "Oh, my bad."
I was like, "Man, I can't believe he running this kickback again."
Exactly. But yeah, man, I think we'll be all right. Tomlin will be back. I'm not sure if Haley will be back.
He doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I've always heard bad things about him, even when he was out in Arizona. I was kind of surprised he ended up in Steeler Nation, but we'll see. I think we'll be all right. Yep. 407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680 is the number. We'll go ahead. What time is your caller calling in tonight? So
Supposed to be calling in about 1 minute.
1 minute, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and Mr. Henry has brought a story to us tonight. Go ahead and introduce the story. I believe that may be your caller on the line. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so we are going to talk about the TPP. And for the folks in the room, has anybody ever heard of the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Honestly, not until you mentioned it to me, my brother.
I've heard it in passing, but if someone asked me to explain it, I wouldn't be able to.
It's convoluted. It's confusing.
It's a lot.
It is. I have yet to find a description of the TPP on the internet that is just one singular sentence that this is the TPP and this is what it is. So what I wanted to do was reach out to someone who has a lot of information on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Secondly, he's a friend. He's knowledgeable. He's intelligent, and I know he'll be able to give us basically almost like a what do they call it? Like a debriefing on the TPP. So my man Jerry Waxman is going to join us. Jerry, how's it going, man?
Hey, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing very well, my friend.
Good. I have to admit, you caught me by surprise. You messaged me this morning, but I didn't realize that you wanted me on the air tonight.
Oh. The element of surprise, right?
I only got home about 10 minutes ago, so I don't have very much at hand, but that doesn't matter because I can tell you what you need to know just right off the top of my head.
So what I would like, just for us in the studio and for the listeners, Just give us a brief synopsis of what TPP is. What is the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Well, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is a trade agreement between 11 nations right now. There may even be 12 coming in. It's all the Pacific Rim countries from the United States, Canada, all of Western South America, Japan, Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, you name it. Anything they can put together there. It's going to encircle the Pacific Ocean. The best way I can describe it, and they do say it's NAFTA on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
If people know what NAFTA was, it was a free trade agreement between three countries, between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And it was supposed to really bolster trade between the three countries. What happened is that these free trade agreements supersede the laws of the country that you're in. Basically, the big corporations that are doing all the business control the trade. And they have authority to actually sue governments that don't comply with their wishes. It's been happening now NAFTA's been since 1994. Canadian government is being sued right now under NAFTA for a couple of $100 million because they refuse to allow fracking in the St. Lawrence River.
Wow.
And an American company is suing them because they're saying that that's restraint of trade and that's a restriction of our profits. Because big company profits are much more important than people in the economy and the ecology.
Now, you described it as NAFTA on steroids, and if you Google it or if you view any type of piece or article on the internet about it, that's basically how anyone describes it. Now, is that a little hyperbolic, or can you give us a little bit more detail as to why it's being described as NAFTA on steroids? Is this going to allow just a free flow of jobs that are just going to be outsourced? Why is it described as such?
Well, because basically you're talking not about three countries, you're talking about 11 countries, each with their own individual makeup. That is going to be controlled by the banks. The banks are going to finance this thing. So the banks who are sitting on top of trillions of dollars are going to make out like bandits, and the international corporations that are going to be participating on this, because it's not going to be you and me who are doing the trade. It's going to be the clothing companies and the farm equipment companies and the auto manufacturers in foreign countries that are going to have a license to bring their stuff in here without any regulation. And if we complain saying it's taking away American jobs, we can get the individual country or state or municipality can be sued by this tribunal. And the judges of this tribunal are the corporate lawyers for these corporations involved. Government has yet to win a case against NAFTA. NAFTA has won hundreds of millions of dollars worth of lawsuits. And we also have the Central American Free Trade Agreement with Colombia and a couple of other countries down there, where the same thing's happening. These countries can run roughshod over us. We have lost, I don't know how many millions of jobs to outsourcing to these countries where they're producing a cheaper, probably a cheaper quality without any of the environmental protections that are in place. And it comes back in here, and people are struggling for a living because we've lost jobs to these people. There was a recent study about a month and a half ago that said that if the Trans-Pacific Partnership goes through, that not only will we lose another 3 or 4 million jobs, but the average wage will go down by about $2,000 a year.
Oh my gosh! And we've had flat wage growth in America since 2000, at least for college
That's
graduates.
Right.
Yep.
Now, I really hope I wish that this was a part in the show that we could just stop and underline everything that that Jerry just said, because it really is so important. Now, I want to move on to something a little different, because we've heard about intellectual property, we've heard about access to medicine. I want to talk about big pharma and how Big Pharma kind of rolls into this. Now, will the Trans-Pacific Partnership allow a new rule that will allow Big Pharma to supersede some of the other organizations who offer cheaper medicine to some of the developing nations that may be involved in this? So is this going to be...
Big Pharma will control that. They are probably going to extend patent life. That's part of the free trade deal. And what we're looking at is people who are on fixed income, seniors who are on Medicare, are going to get it in the backside because their pharmacy bills are going to go up. This is a license for Big Pharma to steal.
That's amazing. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, everything here just basically sounds of what the entire, I guess, spirit of Occupy Wall Street was a couple of years ago, where you're fighting against the corporate greed and everything involved in it. And this just sounds like, more than anything, not NAFTA on steroids, but what we were fighting against a couple of years ago with Occupy Wall Street. Now, when we're talking about the TPP, and it's the way I've read it is that it's not technically a trade agreement. Is that correct? It's not really trade. It's just that's the way businesses are describing it, so that it's softened, so to speak. Is it really a trade agreement, or is this just a way for corporations to?
This is a true trade pact agreement.
Oh.
That's why it's called a TPA. As I said, they have rules. The countries themselves, the corporate lawyers, form the tribunals that judge whether somebody's breaking their laws or not. And these tribunals have more power than the American Supreme Court. It doesn't matter what the Supreme Court says. If the TPP says we're suing,
Can
there's
you
no
repeat
law
that
in America.
again? Can you please say what you just said again?
It supersedes all U.S. law.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Okay?
Just silence.
It
Yeah, because I
supersedes
mean,
all U.S. law. One of the reasons these talks are taking so long is because they haven't figured out how to get every country involved. There are some dissidents in it, and even in some of these Pacific Rim countries, the citizens, especially in South America, are up in arms. They're fighting it tooth and nail. New Zealand is fighting it tooth and nail. Australia is fighting it tooth and nail because they know what's going to happen.
so what's the feeling here in the United States? Now, I know you personally have fought against it, and I'm going to talk about that with you in just a second. But what have you seen here in the United States? Are people as I guess charged up about fighting against this compared to other nations, or what are you seeing here?
The official stance of the Obama administration is that they're for it. And you don't see it in the mainstream press because of that. Now, NPR has now come out against it. Bill Moyers has now come out against it. Today, I read an article about it on NPR. Not NPR, on CNBC. Also had an article about it. What we know about it is that we don't know anything about it. It's secret. Most members of Congress haven't even seen these papers yet.
Yeah, because there have been secret
And the
negotiations.
only ones that have are the committee chairmen that are in favor of it.
Right.
Now,
Our own Alan Grayson was fortunate enough to see one chapter under the conditions that he not tell anybody what he saw.
oh my gosh.
Now, a couple of other Congress people have seen it too, but Alan has been leading the charge. In fact, I was with him last night at party elections, and I'm setting him up with a radio interview with another friend of mine to talk about it. It's really a serious thing because it's like everything else that has happened in this country. The change doesn't happen overnight. It's like you rip Van Winkle, you fall asleep, and you wake up 30 years later and you say, what country am I living in?
Now listen to that. It's change. Change you can believe in.
Okay.
Change doesn't happen
Okay,
overnight.
because the change is so incremental. It's like, that you don't even realize it's happening until it's already happened.
You talked about President Obama's role, or that the Obama administration, their official stance is that they are for this. Can you talk about his role in this? Because when he was candidate Obama, he talked about amending the NAFTA to basically fix it, and now he's pushing the charge for NAFTA on steroids. Can you talk about his role in this, and why do you think he's pushing it?
Can you tell me what bankers have been prosecuted yet?
Not a single one.
Okay. Can you tell me any corporate polluters that have been prosecuted?
Not a single one.
Okay. Think about it. It is they're trying to shut China out. I don't know that this is going to be possible. This was supposed to be a way to circumvent China's power. It's really not possible to do that. But Obama and his advisors feel, and remember who his advisors were, people like Larry Summers,
Mm-hmm.
Rahm Emanuel.
Mm-hmm.
These are also the people that gave us the worst education department in history, that have killed public education. These are the people who took good people out of states on the border and allowed the immigration battle to flame up. I mean, he has made so many mistakes since he's been in office that people don't realize. This is just another one of them. He got bad advice saying, well, let's see. Maybe we can increase our trade deficit by exporting more. Well, what do we have to export?
Now, do you think these are mistakes, or do you think this is intentional?
Jason, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm hoping that it's just bad advice and that he wakes up.
I'll tell you, brother, it's intentional.
I was waiting for you to say something. I was waiting.
Now, Jerry, for the record, Jerry is a journalist. He writes for the Huffington Post. He has his own personal blog where you can read.
I'm also with the West Orlando News.
West Orlando News as well.
And I've published 4 or 5 articles on the TPP. People can very easily go to the West Orlando News, archive me. All my stuff is there with all the links to all the videos I shot, to all the people that I've interviewed, including Jill Stein back in May, or spent an entire day with her. And she's as much against these kind of trade deals as anybody else.
Now, Jimmy, you were motioning. Did you have a question?
Well, yeah, I was reading an article, and I thought it was the one that I have in front of me, but it must not be. But I was seeing that the Obama administration was actually looking to Congress to extend them authority to basically be able to negotiate this, and then once they're done, it's done. So it doesn't need to get any kind of Congress approval.
Is that the
Congress
fast track?
This is called Fast Track Authority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Trade Promotion Authority or Fast
Right.
Track.
Trade Promotion Authority. That's exactly right. And that started under the Nixon administration. They never had that before. See, any trade deal had to be approved by Congress. And it wasn't just a 51% vote. I mean, it had to be a substantial majority to approve trade deals. When Nixon was opening up China, one thing that he knew was that most of our Congress would not approve any trade deal for, let's say, most favored nation status with China. So he cooked up this CPA to fast track it, which means it's an up and down vote, discussion is limited, no amendments are allowed, and bingo, when it's done, it's done. That sunsetted, I'd say about 10 years ago. I know that George Bush #1 tried to do NAFTA that way, and it didn't work. And it wasn't until Clinton came into office that they were able to get it through. And Clinton even said, if I didn't think this was a good deal, I'd never go for it. Well, maybe Clinton's judgment's a little flawed, too. It's not a good deal. We have all suffered because of NAFTA. We have all suffered because of CAFTA. And, I mean, this is like the triple crown of TPAs, or trade agreements. They are trying to fast track it. It's not going to happen this year. They honestly feel they have the votes to fast track it in the Senate, but the House of Representatives is slowly but surely, with the urging of Alan Grayson and a few other people, they're very slowly but surely probably going to vote it down. If they vote down fast track, the TPP is dead, and here's the reason why. If you know what's in it, and the only reason we know what's in it is because of leaked documents, you couldn't vote for it.
There's so much that goes into this because WikiLeaks got a hold of an internal memo around the secret negotiations about not NAFTA, but the TPP.
Right.
Talk about that just a little bit. And do you think that if we continue to receive these type of leaks from WikiLeaks, or whether it's Edward Snowden or whomever, that maybe Americans will start to pay more attention to this deal?
Well, people are starting to pay attention. It wasn't last month, it was 2 months ago, at the Orange County Democratic Executive Committee, one of the activists, friend of mine, introduced a resolution to say no to the TPP. And, of course, the questions ensued after that because out of maybe 70 people in the room, 68 of them didn't know what we were talking about. So I had to stand up and clarify what the TPP was. And we pushed that through. So back in October of 2013, Democratic Executive Committee in Orange County passed a resolution denouncing the TPP and denouncing the fast track. And several other groups like that have done that. There are activists all over the place. In fact, I was on the phone with the person spearheading the Floridians against the TPP. Her name is Harriet Haywood. She called me this evening, and because she wants me to help her draft an op-ed piece to some of the major newspapers in the state, which I will gladly do.
Well, Jerry, as I said at the beginning, more than anything, I know that you've been fighting against this. You've been leading the charge, at least from my personal perspective, against the TPP. But more than anything, I know that you're knowledgeable and you're my friend. So I wanted to bring someone on here.
That goes without saying.
Absolutely. That could just give us a little insight into something that could but that will damage the U.S. economy and damage the lives of so many Americans, even here locally. So thank you so much for joining us, sir. Before we leave, I want you to tell everyone where they can find your writings. I know you said West Orlando News and the Huffington Post, but I want you to give them your website and a little information about how they can get involved in the fight against the TPP.
That's a good question. I have a new website. I'm not sure that it's up yet.
Okay.
It's called WaxmanFiles.com.
Okay.
I know as of last week that my webmaster was changing it around because there were some coding problems. We're also adding a page in because I have a feeling I'm going to be running for political office again, so I'm going to need a page for that and a donate button.
Well, you always have my support.
Okay, and but the West Orlando News is my home paper. It's the first place that I send anything, and nothing gets published until they publish it. So
and I'll say this about West Orlando News because formerly I wrote exclusively for them as well. They, in my opinion, are the liberal voice of Orange County, and they doesn't matter. And Keith, I mean, because you and I know Keith personally.
Keith is a personal friend.
Yeah, he doesn't. It doesn't matter what the content is. He's not going to block you. So as long as you can have your voice heard, that's an excellent publication if you're looking to get any of your writing or blog posts or whatever you want to call it.
If anybody has something to say, Keith will publish it.
Absolutely.
Anybody. You don't have to be a columnist. Yes, I'm an opinion columnist. You're an opinion columnist. But, I did a lot of journalistic reporting along with Gillian, especially during the Trayvon Martin demonstration 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We won some journalism awards because of that reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very proud of the paper, and I'm very proud of the work they do.
Absolutely.
All right.
So, Jerry, thank you again,
Thank you,
sir.
Jerry.
I know we'll be
Appreciate it.
talking again soon, but thanks again for coming on and talking to us about it.
Okay, Jason, always good to talk to you.
All right, man.
Interesting, man. The TPP, like you said, until you text me and said, "Yeah, I'm talking about the TPP." I was like, "The TPP, the TPP." Let me go find out what Jason brought me, bring it to the show, man. And then after I started reading it, man, and how, I mean, I found an article that it did like a 10-question thing, talking about. It was on the Washington Post. It was a blog, and it had 10 questions, answering 10 questions about the TPP. And, the purpose of it being secret is just that. They don't want you to know what's in it until it's done. And then when it's done, it's done.
It's done,
and
yeah.
they'll let you know what they're doing,
They've had, I think, about 15 different negotiating sessions about the TPP, and every single one of them has been done in secret. So anything that your government is doing in secret, I don't think that you should trust. But every single one has been done in secret. The president, he paused negotiations, I believe, when he was first elected. He restarted them, I believe, a few months after he was elected. This started, I believe, with President Bush. It's an offshoot of, I believe it's called the Trans-Pacific Economic Partnership, if I'm not mistaken. It was called the PAC 4 because it was originally just 4 countries, and then it expanded. And then you heard him talking about fast track, the thing that you mentioned, where you don't need congressional approval for this. So the administration is pushing for that to happen. And in the article that I read, and Jerry alluded to it, that they do have the votes in the Senate, but it is good to hear that they may not have them in the House. Because if
Republicans get something right, Mr. McCray. They get something right.
I will say that there are Republicans for this as well.
Comment.
So
no comment.
So I mean, it's one of those things where it's confusing. If you go and read anything about TPP, you're going to get probably a 300 or 400 word article, and the author is going to spend the entire time trying to explain to you what it actually means.
Yeah.
And that type of stuff is done on purpose, obviously, because if your eyes start to glaze over when you get to the first paragraph, then you're automatically going to go to something different. So I think that's why a lot of people aren't necessarily privy to what's happening. Like you said, it's not in the mainstream media. You do not hear a lot of NBC, ABC, CBS
They'll talk about
talking about it.
They may mention it when it gets done.
Yeah, they'll say, the TPP was passed today.
Yeah.
And on to local news.
Exactly.
You'll have something different. So more than anything, I wanted clarification on it, but I wanted someone who had way more information than I did about TPP. And I wanted just folks to understand why this is so important, why you should follow it, and why this is going to impact you. Because like you said, you could see a $2,000 reduction in your salary because of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And we have already seen that wage growth in this country has been flat since 2000. So we're approaching 15 years where we have not seen any type of wage growth for Americans. And we already see the type of shape that the economy is in. So if we have something like this to hit us and they call it NAFTA on steroids, just think about what that can do to the American economy.
Yeah, because even just when you think about one of the impacts, like he was talking about, are patents. And so, a lot of these developing countries, they're the ones that make the generic drugs that get sold.
And Big Pharma's going to take that over.
And so when you take away and you start exposing the country to these other countries who are making these generic drugs, if the patents are limited to what they are currently, then you get these cheaper drugs onto the market faster. But that was apparently that's one of the big holdups right now, are the patents. That's one of the chapters that's kind of holding this thing up, because like you say, Big Pharma wants to make sure that they have an extended life on those patents. And honestly, these other countries can't come in with these generics and offer these cheaper medicines.
Go and go and Google WikiLeaks TPP, and you'll be able to see some of the memos that were leaked, and you'll be able to see where the United States stands on some of those memos, or in some of because the way they broke it down is it's like patents and medicine and other things, and which countries are for them. They actually have charts included within the memos, and you'll be able to see where some of these countries stand. And when the United States, or when a spokesman for the Obama administration was asked about it, they said, that's old information. Some of it has been changed. But they never said yay or nay if they were for any of the information that was included in the memo. They never said yes or no. They just said, some of the information is old. We've changed some of it. Some of it has been updated. But they never said, yes, we're for this, or no, we're not for it. So that may tell you all you need to know about what's included in this trade pact.
The TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, man. We'll see how it goes.
Partnership Agreement, yeah.
They're pushing into 2014, but
and by the way, he's trying to get this passed he's trying to get it signed by New Year's Day. So if they're able to fast track it, which I don't think they will, but he's pushing for it. The president is pushing for it to be signed by New Year's Day.
Exactly. So yeah, like you, I don't think that'll happen, but apparently this is going to be a big part of what his agenda in 2014. So hats off to you, Ms. McCray.
You're excited about this, aren't you? You're getting too much enjoyment from
Not
this,
at all, Ms. McCray.
J. Real.
Not
we'll
at
move
all.
on, though.
Not
we'll
at
move
all,
on.
Ms. McCray. Not at all.
Uh-huh.
I'm sad that
Uh-huh.
he's doing this to us, Mr. Gray.
Right. Next.
You know that you still reside here.
Right.
Unless you move to Canada or Mexico or the Bahamas or something, you still are going to
Switch.
A couple of things I wanted to do. You know, we were off the air last week. We're going to talk about Nelson Mandela. Obviously, he recently died. But a couple quick articles I wanted to mention before we talk about him real quick. Two crazy stories that I saw over the last couple weeks here. One, there was a gentleman who apparently caught 128 charges based on things that they saw on his Instagram. 128 charges based on things they saw on his Instagram.
Yeah. He had it all laid out like on the counter, like guns and ammo and
I mean,
grenades, just crazy stuff.
It's like it's 2003. Have we not learned? I mean,
No.
And of course, he was a black dude. Of course.
Yeah.
Sadly enough, man. You know, let this serve as a lesson, man. You know, what if you're gonna do dirt? You know, you shouldn't do dirt. Number one. But if you're going to do it, you certainly don't put it on Facebook. You don't put it on Instagram. You don't put it on Twitter. You know, let's learn from this, people. 128 charges based on pictures on his Instagram.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, basically, and from what the story read is they heard some stuff about him. And then basically they were led to his Instagram. They went on his Instagram and be like, oh, yeah, I guess everything's true. Let's go get him.
Yes.
Come on, man.
Now, this is the thing that don't make no sense.
Come on.
A grenade. Now, what do you think will happen when you put a grenade? It
Right.
is 2014. The way they run around by terrorists.
Yeah. Son,
Everything
really?
else you probably would have got away with because people put guns and money on all the time, but a grenade?
Grenade.
Come
on the
man.
kitchen counter. Just like, yeah,
I
let's
mean,
do
if-
this.
If you go do that, you're supposed to put your enrollment list into the Army or something. Like, that's how I got it, you know. Just sitting a grenade on the counter, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man, but he need to be in jail.
You are the Bama
I
of the
agree.
week.
Put it on Instagram. Tell the whole world so you can go to jail. Please, if you that stupid, go right ahead.
A grenade.
A grenade, bro.
Grenade.
The other one I saw was there was a young white kid. He was a teenager. I can't remember his exactly. Somewhere between 16 and 18. But anyway, he was driving a car drunk. Ended up killing 4 people. So when he went to trial, his lawyer argued affluenza is what they termed it. Yeah. Affluenza. What is affluenza, you say? That's a great question. Basically, they argued due to his wealth, his judgment was impaired, and so therefore he shouldn't go to jail because his wealth has distorted his normal, logical thinking about life. Like, seriously? So because you're rich, you make poor decisions as a kid?
Yeah.
Really?
I hope that judge
Here's the
gets
sad part.
disbarred.
Here's the sad part. It worked. That's the sad part.
Right.
Killed 4 people, and he got 10 years probation. No jail time. 10 years probation of paid. He's supposed to go to see a psychiatrist that the family's going to pay for 10 years during his 10-year probation.
He moved to
See
a
ya.
mansion in California, and his parents have to pay for that place, and he has to like register there that he's there. No consequences.
Affluenza.
What does that say?
Are you kidding me? Affluenza.
They just made
The
up a
judge
word.
told you what it said.
You can't even
know
treat
what?
affluenza. How do you treat that?
They usually apply affluenza to kids in school, so your age dictates that you don't have enough judgment, or you haven't, I guess, cultivated enough judgment to make sound decisions. But you're a kid,
Right.
so affluenza is usually applied to children, and they applied it to, a white kid with a lot of money. If that's the case, I have affluenza every time I get pulled over because I'm black. Can I use that defense? So
Yeah.
That's just crazy, man. Just crazy. I couldn't believe that when I saw that story, man.
That judge needs to be just kicked off the bench. I mean, because what about those 4 people? 4 people he killed.
Driving drunk.
Driving drunk.
he
Nuts.
gave somebody life in prison before as well. I think it was a black kid. She
Yeah,
life
of
in
course.
prison, too.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Can't let the brothers get out. They dangerous.
And the brothers ain't got no money. First of all,
Yeah, I'm saying,
the brother don't got no money.
Can you argue porfluenza? I ain't got no money though. It impaired my whole thought process. I was just too busy thinking about how I'm gonna get some money. I mean,
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And then one last thing here I wanted to mention. Golden Globes. I usually don't watch the Golden Globes, but I will be tuning in this year because I want to see what's happened. If you look at the nominations, 12 Years as a Slave got 7 nominations, if I remember the count right, which was tied for the most. So that's pretty cool. 7 nominations. Best Supporting Actress, Best Actor, Best Screenplay, Best Director, and a couple other nominations, I believe, for behind the scenes type of events. But yeah, man, that was cool. Idris Elba, he's also got nominated for Mandela, and he also got nominated for a little known BBC show he has too, called Luther. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Luther. But yeah, I watched it. I was I don't know why I was home. I think I was sick or something and ended up watching like all the episodes. It was interesting, man.
With his fine self. But we move on. We can carry on.
So you know, more black nominations I think than they've had in years.
Yeah.
At the Golden Globe this year. So next year. So hopefully, man. Hopefully at least a few of these brothers walk away with some trophies this year. That'd be awesome. Mm-hmm. Especially too if it carries over into the Oscars as well. They did leave the Butler out. That was kind of surprising. You'd think somebody from the Butler would have got something.
Right.
You know, but
they were recommended for the SAG, nominated for the SAG Awards, which is nominated by the peers, and then the industry people did the Golden Globe. So it'll be interesting what happens with the Oscars.
Definitely.
If they bring Forrest
Can't wait to
into.
see.
they couldn't put them in there. They already fulfilled their quota. Somebody had to get left out.
They had too many already, huh, bro?
It could be for Best Actor, Chiwetel, Idris, and Forrest for Best Lead Actor in a motion film. That would be something else.
I was like, I'm
We'll
waiting
see.
for that.
It's possible.
That's not right.
Well, I guess
It's possible.
Only one of them brothers gonna get the nom. Only one room for one brother, and I'm like Mr. King. But
possible.
we'll see, man. We'll see. Good times. I'm just happy to see black film recognized on that level. You know, because it typically isn't. It typically goes under the radar. Next, as they like to say. But I want to spend these last few minutes talking about Nelson Mandela. So as we all know, he passed away, age of 95. Here's to me what really struck me about Nelson Mandela. I was looking at some news stories about him over the last couple of weeks or whatever. But the interesting thing, he had made a statement one time about his time in prison, because there was, before he went to prison, they were obviously doing some series of bombings and whatnot. And he was talking about some of the discussions at that time were talking about bombing schools as well. And, you know, relative, before he obviously had an opportunity to bomb a school, he actually got arrested, sent to jail. And in jail, what happened to him, you know, he was humbled, you know, ultimately. You know, he went to jail. He was kind of brash before he went in, but after he came out, he was obviously a very humble guy. And what was interesting to me about that is, you know, thinking about God and how God, you know, has a plan for you. And you never know what that plan is. But when you think about his plan, you know, and this may or may not be true, but applying that whole religion to it, obviously as a brash young man, he would have never made it to the heights that he made it. But as a humble man, he went to the top of the mountain and beyond. And just thinking about, you know, God's plan and how you never know what that plan is and where that plan will take you. I mean, but to go to jail, to then rise above, you know, everybody that you were even, you know, fighting against when you before you went to jail, just seems to be an amazing story. You know, in a time when, because he was there, he was talking about the same time of Malcolm, talking about the same time of Martin. Malcolm's dead, obviously. Martin's dead, and now he's dead, but he's dead at 95. So he outlived, you know, all of the civil rights, you know, individuals of his time, only because, though, he was in jail.
I was just about to say they
that-
wanted him dead.
That's why.
Yeah, they wanted him dead. If not for prison, he would have been in the ground a while.
Exactly.
If he was in America,
He
would
would
have
have
been
been
dead.
he would've been dead.
But yeah, one of the things, like I said, I had told the crew, man, I just wanted to kind of reflect on Nelson Mandela and whatever influence they may have had on their lives. And certainly for the audience, the same thing. 407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680 is the number. But you know, it's been a couple weeks now, guys. Does anybody have any reflection that they wanted to talk about?
Well, I would say this. The first time I remember, obviously, we growing up here, most of us, when we were younger, we had no idea who he was. And I remember watching the Arsenio Hall show. I can't even remember the year, obviously early 90s. You know, Stevie Wonder was on there, and they had a nice group of singers. And they came out, and I think this was like right after he was released. And they started singing a song about Mandela. You know, Stevie would write anything. And they started singing a song about Mandela. I'm like, who in the world is Mandela? And that was my introduction to who Mandela was. And then start finding out he was in jail 27 years. I'm like, whoa, you know. I mean, obviously then we already knew about the apartheid in South Africa and everything. But, I never knew how long they had been fighting it, up until then, we thought it was just in the 80s when we started hearing a little bit about it, how different companies were pressuring them to boycott or stop putting products into South Africa and things like that. But I didn't know it was going on that long, that fight was going on that long. So that was my introduction to him.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ms. McCray, you got anything?
Just introduced to him by my parents, making sure, but like Jeremy said, as a youngster, I didn't quite grasp his full importance until I got to college and was able to really do my own research and dig in and read books and truly understand what that meant, what he really did for that country. And then, so when he passed, I mean, we've known that he was ill, but when he passed, it wasn't a sadness to me. I mean, he was 95 years old, but it was like, man, that guy has changed. He totally changed this country, and he can go in peace and know that the world is grieving him. The world is grieving him. And, some of the youth, bless their hearts, they don't quite understand who he was, but they should. Everyone really should read a book, do something. Watch this film that Idris Elba is going to be in. I hear it's really good. And
Christmas Day.
Yeah, and it's from what I understand, it's pretty accurate for a Hollywood movie. You know how that goes. So it needs to be seen. Take your children, take your grandkids, make them understand what this man did.
Right, and his impact,
Right.
because, I mean, ultimately, like I said, there was, during that time, I mean, the three of those men were fighting, similar fights in different locales. So his influence, especially in South Africa, specifically, is just as powerful as Martin Luther King's impact in America, and as well as Malcolm X for some people too. Usually people kind of pick a side for some reason.
Right.
I don't know why we can't love both Martin and Malcolm.
Right.
Equally.
Equally.
I love them both equally.
I do too.
But
Can I also say that it was poignant, and I kind of just had a proud moment when President Obama was speaking at the service. It's like, wow, our black president is speaking at Nelson Mandela's service. Like, if you didn't have a moment
of that translator, that was my
you know what? We're not even going to talk about him.
he had
What they said
schizophrenia.
was
he said.
schizophrenic.
Right.
Miss Monica can tell you if you have schizophrenia. Things like that can happen, right, Miss Monica?
You're not going to do that and stay that poised and remain the entire time of the service.
I'm glad somebody said that.
That's not going to happen. If you were seeing things, he would have, been slapping people
Yes.
and moving. He wouldn't have been just waving in the air.
Doing the
with
same
fingers.
motions over and over again. I think he did like 5. The same ones.
And looking intense. That's what I was just about to say.
Security! security? Where was Secret Service?
If you don't know sign language, then you're thinking that dude is getting it.
I know. He's getting every word.
Right.
And then you found out he was maybe a murderer, a rapist.
Yes. Part of some group that
Yeah.
would burn men and just crazy. This man was nuts.
Standing next to the president.
Secret Service. Where were you? Y'all get an F.
Down in South America. Never mind.
Oh, well, see, we're not gonna do that, Jason.
They was having fun somewhere.
Oh my God.
They was having fun somewhere. What about you, Miss Monica? Any thoughts on Nelson Mandela?
I'm very similar to many of the other panelists. I didn't know very much when I was younger, but actually during the process of everyone sharing their reflection throughout the weeks, there was something that really stuck out to me. How when he was originally released, they were sharing and asking him, how do you feel angry? Do you, at the people that imprison you? And he was sharing how if he were to keep that resentment, that they would truly be the one who won rather than, him having the victory ultimately. And I thought that was really, important for us to think about, even in our community, that we allow something to happen and we just, against the man for decades at a time. And we never make that progress. He was able to move on and actually make some change in the entire world. Whereas we hold on to things and we just stay stagnant forever, in certain aspects. So I think that's really something that we should take into account and really reflect on.
Definitely. Because you think about the things that he had to endure 27 years in prison, and then to come out. And they talked about how at his inauguration, he invited the people who were running that particular prison to come and and be a part of that with him. So like I said, humble.
Yeah. Yes.
Humble.
30 years in prison to do that for me.
Yeah.
Humble. Come out humble, and then have this love for everybody. Whether you've wronged him, whether you've been good to him, no matter where you were with him, he still loved you and wanted you to be a part of the movement that he was creating. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Thank you, Mandiba.
What about you, Jason? Any thoughts?
I guess my wasn't really that familiar with him as a kid, obviously, but the thing that I remember about him is my favorite movie is Malcolm X of all time. Favorite movie. And I remember at the end, after Ossie Davis's, when he gave, why do I always do this? I can't think of the word, but when he talked about Malcolm and he gave his reflection after, if you remember, it was Mandela in a South African classroom who was talking about the impact that Malcolm X has had all over the world. So it was that I remember about him. But you know what? One of the main things that I do remember about him is he was, I understand, the forgiveness aspect of it. I understand that people have pride in it, but I kind of liken it to Malcolm X, where you say that, why can't we just love Malcolm and Martin equally? And it's the freedom fighter in him that I guess resonates closely with me, because even when he was in prison for 27 years, him and some of his mates that were with him from the African National Congress, even when they were breaking bricks every day and breaking limestone, they had conditions on how they would actually do this. They were not going to be treated like scum. They actually went to some of the prison or some of the prison guards and said that we'll do this, but we have to have some concessions as well. So, I mean, just thinking about what he fought against, just thinking about some of the things that he even, when he was president, after him and, or after he divorced from his second wife, Winnie Mandela, she criticized him heavily after their divorce. She said that, when he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize with F.W. de Klerk, the former president of South Africa, she said she never forgave him for doing that, for accepting a Nobel Peace Prize with the former white president of South Africa. She said that he could have done more economically for South Africans, and that a lot of them are still living in shanties. So if you think about the hood or the ghetto here, and think about that being 10 times worse in South Africa, a lot of people have criticized him for not keeping that same spirit that he had before he went into prison and while he was in prison. So
can I make an argument on that?
Yeah.
The first black president can't do everything, right? Okay, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry. I just had to say
know
that
what?
you can't
Jimmy,
do everything.
I can't deal.
How you doing tonight, Rodney?
Not
What's
even
your
gonna go
comment, sir?
How are you?
We're doing good, sir.
Good. I was listening to your program, and I think it's very informative. And one of the things I wanted to add about Nelson Mandela, and a lot of you seem to be pretty young. While I was in college, I was a supporter of the ANC. Conditions that Mandela went to, you could not have a photograph. The last photograph that they had of Nelson Mandela was when he was captured as a prisoner, and it was illegal to have an image of him or some of his writings in South Africa. This sparked a movement with Leon Sullivan. It's called the Sullivan Principles, where it's an economic boycott against South Africa, and you had a few artists like Stevie Wonder, some of the Commodores that boycotted South Africa. It was a place called Sun City. But the legacy that Mandela had to have his torturers be his bodyguards, to have a reconciliation and truth committee about the conditions. And remember, they had a quota in the limestone yards that they had to work a certain amount, whether they had tools or not. So the legacy that he left worldwide is just immense, and he would have been written out of history, but it was a people's movement that changed it as well. And, he made his mark. I know you're talking about Malcolm and Martin and Medgar Evers and all these folks, but he truly made a mark worldwide.
Absolutely.
Definitely. We appreciate your comment, Rodney. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Can I just parenthetically insert that for Mandela, he said that, nobody knew what he looked like when he came out of prison. Nobody knew what to expect because you had no clue what he was going to look like. But it was the CIA who was actually instrumental in putting him in prison for 27 years.
Right. Yeah.
So if you go back and Google, there was an article in the New York Times back in 1991 that talked about how a CIA operative talked about they knew what he was wearing, they knew where he was going to be, they knew what vehicle he was going to be in, what house he was going to be in. So the CIA was very instrumental in putting him in prison. And it's just kind of funny when you see how not Americans, but how the government here talks about him when you were the government that basically put him in prison.
Right. And it even talks about how at one point in time he was on the most wanted list.
He was a terrorist, considered a terrorist up until 2008.
But when you consider the time, because again, I mean, Martin was nobody's friend in the CIA, Malcolm the same. So it really flows right in there with where those gentlemen were as well. I see we're kind of winding down here. There's a couple. I just want to give a couple quotes that I picked up online that he said here. Okay. The first one says, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. We talked about education a number of times on this program, and it's the key, man. I don't care what you get something. Get something. Get something. A 2-year degree, but get something. Another one that I saw, it says, for to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. Good stuff. Good stuff. The last one I'll quote here says, in my country, we go to prison first and then become president. He had to be joking when he said that,
right?
But it kind of shows, some of the obviously the humor that he had as well. So yeah, man, Nelson Mandela passed away 95. We want to, as we wind down here, we want to make sure we say Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Happy New Year as well. Happy holidays as we flow into 2014 in a couple of weeks here. It's going to be exciting times. I can't wait to get to the new year. So just real quick, I want to thank everybody for joining me. Thank the audience for listening. And as we wind down this year, we will definitely look forward to next year, seeing you next year. Make sure you keep tuned in. Tonight I'm going to post the article that I read to kind of just give an answer to about 10 questions about that TPP, just to give you a quick little summary about it on RealFamilyTalk.weebly.com. So if you're interested, go to RealFamilyTalk.weebly.com, and I will certainly post that article so you can kind of get that quick a little brief. It's from the Washington Post. It's a blog on the Washington Post. So we'll see you. You say we're winding down here. We want to make sure you remember this is WOKB 1680 AM. You can make sure you listen online as well, WOKBradio.com, as well as on the TuneIn app too. For sure, man. And you can also call us anytime. 407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680 is the number. You guys got any last comments?
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Be
Indeed.
blessed. Be safe. Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all that.
Does anybody do Kwanzaa? I don't know anybody.
I know
that does Kwanzaa.
2 families that still do Kwanzaa. But, all right.
Does anybody do...
We're done.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll see you next week, folks.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.